Story name: The Cursed Professor. Blackwood University had always been known for its prestigious reputation, a place of excellence where the brightest minds gathered. But beneath its historic charm lay a secret, one that no one dared to speak about. Professor Jonathan Graves had been a faculty member for over 20 years, teaching literature and folklore. He was known for his sharp intellect, but also for his strange behavior. Some students whispered that he was obsessed with the occult. Others claimed they had seen shadows moving in his office when he wasn't there. Everything changed when a group of students decided to investigate. Late one night, Emily Carter, Daniel Reeves, and Mark Holloway snuck into Professor Graves' office. They had heard rumors that he kept forbidden books, ancient texts filled with rituals long forgotten. The door creaked open, revealing a room covered in strange symbols. Candles had melted onto the desk, and the air was thick with the scent of burnt parchment. At the center of the desk lay a black leather-bound book, its cover marked with a single eye. Emily reached out to touch it. The room went cold. The candles flickered violently, and the shadows twisted, stretching unnaturally along the walls. A whisper crawled through the air. "You shouldn't be here." Mark stumbled backward. "Guys, let's get out of here." But Emily was frozen, her eyes locked on the book. The pages flipped on their own, revealing a passage written in crimson ink. The moment she tried to read it aloud, the door slammed shut. A shadow rose from the corner, its shape twisting into something almost human. But its face was empty. Daniel screamed, and then everything went black. When Emily opened her eyes, she found herself alone in the office. The candle flames had gone out, and the air felt suffocatingly heavy. The black leather-bound book lay open in front of her, its pages now blank. Where were Daniel and Mark? A faint scratching sound echoed through the room. It came from the walls. Emily turned slowly, her pulse hammering in her ears. The once empty chalkboard behind her was now covered in strange symbols, drawn in what looked like dried blood. A whisper brushed against her ear. "Run." She didn't think twice. She bolted toward the door, yanking it open, only to freeze in horror. Professor Graves stood outside. His eyes, once a dull gray, now gleamed with an unnatural golden glow. His expression was unreadable, but the corners of his mouth twitched upward in something resembling a smile, too wide, too unnatural. "You've seen too much, Emily." His voice was layered, as if someone else was speaking with him. Emily tried to push past him, but the moment she touched him, her vision blurred. She felt herself being pulled out of her body, her consciousness spiraling into darkness. Then, silence. Meanwhile, Daniel and Mark awoke somewhere else entirely. They were no longer inside Blackwood University. The walls around them pulsed, as if alive. The air smelled of rotting wood and something metallic. Blood. Mark gripped Daniel's arm. "Where are we?" A voice echoed through the void. "You are inside the book." The walls shifted, revealing hundreds of figures trapped in the darkness, their mouths open in silent screams. Their eyes followed Daniel and Mark as they stumbled forward, searching for a way out. Then they saw her. Emily, but not Emily. She stood in the distance, her head tilted at an unnatural angle, her eyes completely black. Her lips parted, and the whispering began again. "The ritual has begun." Daniel turned to run, but something grabbed his ankle. The shadows pulled him down. Mark's scream was the last sound that echoed through the darkness before everything disappeared. Back in the real world, Professor Graves sat at his desk, flipping through the black book. He smirked as 3 new names appeared on its pages: Emily Carter, Daniel Reeves, Mark Holloway. He closed the book and whispered, "Welcome to eternity." Darkness consumed them. Mark awoke on cold stone, his body aching as if he had fallen from a great height. The air was damp, filled with the scent of decay and burning parchment. Shadows flickered along the walls, shifting unnaturally. Daniel was beside him, his breathing shallow. But Emily, she was nowhere to be seen. Then a voice echoed through the abyss. "You cannot escape." The walls trembled, revealing the figures trapped in the book. Their skinless faces stretched toward them, mouths moving in silent screams. Their hands clawed at the air, desperate to reach the two survivors. Daniel stumbled backward. "What is this place?" Mark's voice shook. "I think we're inside the book. We're trapped." Then a slow clap cut through the whispers. From the shadows, Professor Graves emerged, but this wasn't the man they knew. His body was taller, twisted, unnatural. His eyes burned with a sickly golden light, and his fingers ended in razor-sharp claws. He smiled. "You should have stayed out of my office." Mark lunged at him, but the moment he touched Graves, an invisible force hurled him backward. He crashed into the wall, his vision blurring. Daniel tried to run, but the shadows grabbed his legs, dragging him toward the abyss. "No!" Mark reached for him, but it was too late. Daniel's scream vanished into the void. Professor Graves knelt beside Mark, his voice a whisper. "This is your final lesson, Mark. Knowledge is power, but some knowledge demands a price." Mark clenched his fists. "Where's Emily?" Graves chuckled. "She made her choice." Then, behind him, Emily stepped forward. But she was different. Her eyes were completely black, her skin pale as parchment. Strange symbols burned into her arms, glowing faintly in the dark. "She belongs to the book now," Graves murmured. Emily tilted her head. And then, for the first time, she smiled, not with warmth, but with hunger. Mark's breath caught in his throat. "Emily, it's me. You have to fight this." She blinked, and for a moment her expression softened. The symbols on her arms flickered. Graves' eyes darkened. She is mine." The shadows surged forward, wrapping around Mark's body. He fought, but their grip was unbreakable. Emily's face twisted with conflict, her fingers curled into fists. Then, she screamed. A blast of blinding white light erupted from her, sending Graves stumbling back. The shadows recoiled, releasing Mark. The trapped souls in the walls shrieked in agony. The book, the cursed book, was burning. Graves let out a roar, his body cracking apart like shattered glass. Emily fell to her knees. "We have to get out." Mark grabbed her hand, and together they ran. The world crumbled around them. The abyss swallowed the screams of Professor Graves, his voice stretching into eternity. Then, they woke up. Epilogue. Blackwood University was quiet. Too quiet. Emily and Mark sat outside the abandoned office. The door was gone. The room was empty, as if Professor Graves had never existed. No one remembered him. No one remembered Daniel. Mark clenched his fists. Did we really escape? Emily didn't answer. Instead, she looked down at her arms. The symbols, they were still there. Faint, almost invisible, but still there. And in the wind, just for a moment, she heard a whisper. "I will return." End of The Cursed Professor.
Please like and subscribe.